You're listening to the Believe in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
Welcome to another edition of Believe in Giants, presented by FanDuel. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks. So the Giants go on the road. They get their first road victory since last year in Seattle. They had lost 13 in a row on the road, and they go beat the Raiders 34-10. They put up 27 points offensively. They get a special teams touchdown. And, Carl, there were a lot of very relieved people as we got on the bus yesterday. The team did a really nice job. They had an In-N-Out burger truck before we got on the buses to head to the stadium, before we headed to the airport. And there were a lot of relieved people and a lot of smiles, and good for those guys that laid it on the line all season long.
Yeah, Bob, I think it is exactly why these young men play the game, why these coaches coach this game. They go out there and they try to give 100%. No one likes losing, but when you're in a funk, the way this team has been, to see the look on those players' faces, and, for a lot of fans who've never been a part of organized sports, you won't be able to identify with, the camaraderie on those buses and on those planes and the joy that those young men felt. And I'm super proud of them. I'm happy they won. They don't play for draft picks, these players. I understand. Let me repeat myself. I understand some of the positions of fans, but that's just not how it works. When you've got guys who go out there and compete, they are going to win a football game. And there are a lot of things that I liked about this team, and super proud of Wan'Dale Robinson, right? He hits a career milestone. If you're a fan and you can't be happy with him reaching 1,000 yards, then you've got to partition up, and you're looking at this, solely from what's in it for you. And again, I understand it. It's if you're in your 20s, you have not seen winning. In your early 20s, you have not seen winning from this team. So I get it, right? But those guys go out there and they played hard, and I saw a lot of really good things that I was excited for, man. You talk about, people not complain, but they try to point out that, there's no player development on the roster. And I say your quarterback is Exhibit A, right? He's bounced back from a rough game last week. You talk about a guy like Darius Alexander, from where he was in training camp, and a majority of people, whether they want to admit it or not, oh, he's a bust. Why was everybody so high on him? Came in and he played really, really well. Roy Robinson Harris, and this is when I talk about player development, and again, I'm going to give my flowers to Andre Patterson, because when I spoke to him in training camp about Roy Robinson Harris, he said that Roy Robinson Harris could be a dominant player at his position. He has to deprogram, meaning Andre has to deprogram him from thinking like he's got to do everything like a little man. He's got to play with size. He's got to play with his size. This guy has been really, really good as a run stopper. He's a powerful guy, and you see him out there. That's development, and that's development of a veteran player who's found another phase or another gear to his game, and that's his coaching, right? Darius Alexander out there played a lot of plays, made a lot of plays yesterday, got a sack. And I can go down the line, but the other area And I don't know what's going to happen, and it's probably not enough. And I'm upset that Charlie Bullen has not really had enough time to put a stamp on this defense. But these last 3 games, they are night and day from what we saw from Shane Bowen. He's aggressive. The thing that really encourages me about Charlie Bullen, and this is not a comparison, folks, but I was there at the beginning of Bill Belichick. And he's got some of those qualities. And now, again, this is not a comparison, but I'm just looking at how he's implementing and using players, and he's intellectually curious about, from one week to the next, what he can do better with getting the talent in great positions to have success. And you see it. They, listen, they played the run well, but this game, they got the stops when they needed them. All the last 2 games they played the run well, they just couldn't get stops when they needed them. This time they did. He made some tweaks, right? And they would have had better numbers. Bobby Okereke missed, I think, 2 tackles right in the hole for tackles for loss when the defensive line did a great job. But they are really starting to see what we all envisioned for this defense, right? And the 3-man action that Charlie Bullen is using or implementing was something, I talked about in training camp or even in the preseason after draft. I'm like, how are they going to block all 3 guys, all 4 guys? He's using these actions where he's got Burns, he's got Carter, and he's got Dexter all in an action together. It's hard. Somebody's going to break free. And every time he uses them, and it's not just in the pass game, he's using linebackers in that same type of action, off-ball linebackers in the same type of action versus the run. That's what this is about. This is what good defensive coordinating is saying, okay, I got 3 individual talents, and it was 4, but he never coached Kayvon Thibodeau. But I got these 3 individual talents. How can I put these guys in combination together so that you can't single one of these 3 guys out? And Dexter played a hell of a game yesterday. He was disruptive. But that's Charlie Bullen. And, the one thing that I would give Charlie Bullen a little note is, as good as you play in a must-have-it moment, you got to have something in your back pocket, right? The thing that you have in your back pocket, and this is when I talk about the must-have-it moment, it's always getting a tight end stopped at a certain point in the game, and they never seem to do it. They are in coverage, but the tight end seems to have his way every week. There's a phrase we call tag, mug, or dog. So he could call whatever the front cover 2 dog or cover 2 mug. The cover 2 mug, and you add a number to it, it'll be 85 or whoever the tight end is. Now all of a sudden, here's a team that says, okay, we know we can get our tight end up the seam. Well, all of a sudden now, your slot defender, if the tight end is in the slot, he's no longer off. He's on. Because with the exception of a few tight ends in this league, and it's probably just one, who's Jason Kelce, who gets to run whatever route he wants to run. When you have the pass rush humming like it was humming or like it has been humming, you add that little wrinkle, because what quarterbacks are counting on is, okay, we see the coverage. Our tight end is going to get a 4 or 5 yard start, and he's going to do a stick move and be inside, and the ball's going to be thrown in that window right away. It's timing. Well, your pass rush can't get there because this is kind of their look. But if you add that tag to it and you say, cover 4 dog 85, cover 2 dog 85, all of a sudden that slot defender goes up to the line of scrimmage, and it's not a hard dog or anything. It's just a jam. a jam long enough to get the tight end off of his route, and that pass rush ends that play, right? Because now the quarterback just sits and waits for, they literally, and the Giants do it too. They wait for their tight end to clear, and they hit that window. It's all timing.
It's a systemic problem in the NFL, Carl, because I was watching
people
the games
don't
on
even know how to
Saturday.
do it. I've seen, and if people want to see how great it is, go watch some of the New England Patriots when Belichick was coaching them and they were playing Tony Gonzalez. They treat him like a gunner on the punt team sometimes. They used to confuse the heck out of him. But it's systemic because people think that the coverage will do it when you're off 5 yards on the tight end who's running, get a running start, and he just gets one move and he's in the window and the ball is out. You disrupt the timing of that. You disrupt the timing of it, and the play's over because your dogs are hunting up front.
Romeo Crennel was still the defensive coordinator. The Patriots were playing the Kansas City Chiefs in a primetime game, and the Chiefs had the ball in the last seconds of the game at the Patriots' 4-yard line. And I'll never forget, Carl, to your point, 3 different guys hit Tony Gonzalez from the Patriots defense before he got to his 5 yards and got into the end zone to even start a move. They wound up winning the game because they stopped him.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, because the words weren't even out of your mouth yesterday on the 4th down play or whatever. And it's like, you were like, well, if I were the Giants, make sure someone gets hands on the tight end. And you finished saying it, and then I called the play, and the ball went right to Mayer, who was wide open, who had a career day in catches and yards.
Right. But see, that's the thing. People, if the starting tight end is out, like I said, with the exception of a few guys, and Kelsey being the main guy, most of these guys have to run routes. It's their system, right? So when they get in a certain area, if you can extract tight end A and put in tight end B, he's going to run the same routes. He's going to be open. They're going to throw it to him, right? He's just got to catch it. But when you are defending it the same way, they know that they can put whoever in there that can catch a football and run a route. He's going to get it.
Senate did it for Washington with Ertz out against the Giants.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
It's the same route. And yesterday, Mayer ran Bowers' routes. Instead of Mayer's day going for 120 like Bowers would have, he had his day based on his abilities, to run away from people and everything else. So you're right. It's not like teams are like, oh, we're missing our starting tight end. That's out of the playbook. We're going to just run it with an expectation that we're not going to get as big a chunk as we might with our Pro Bowl guy.
Right. And I'm just telling you, and if I get a chance to speak to Coach Bullen, I'm going to tell him, put that in your back pocket for when you need it. That's you just tag a two dog, 4 dog, 4 mug, or whatever you want to call it. And then there are variations of that. But the first part of it is to just walk your slot up at the line of scrimmage, reroute, jam, and watch your dogs hunt on the front line, because it's all timing, and your pass rush can never get there because they've got it set. Well, at 5 yards, you're going to make your move and you're going to get in the window, balls out. You jam that guy and the timing is off, the quarterback's got to pull the ball. Now he's got to go somewhere else, and then you're going to get your sack, or you're going to get a disruption of the quarterback.
It's interesting because they were so good on 3rd down and they were so bad on 4th down.
Because the 3rd downs were, if it was 3rd and 6, they got 5. They gave them enough. They gave them enough on 3rd down to.
I think they did convert a 3rd and 10 or something too, though.
Yeah, they did. But but when you get good 3rd down play, you got to be able to finish it, and that's one of the things you can do to make a team pay. But also, 3rd downs, 3rd and 6, and they get 5. That's not a victory unless you can get off the field on 4th down. And they just didn't do it. They were 4 for 4 on 4th down.
4 for 5. They stopped them on the last one.
Yeah. So and that's that. Again, these young men went out there and they played their asses off, and there was an opponent on the field, and they beat them. No matter who that opponent was or what that opponent decided to do, the Giants decided that they want to play and they want to win. And yes, you would like to have seen many more of these, and there probably should have been about 6 or 7 more, or at least I would say they should have six or 7 wins on the year, but for bad defensive play down the stretch. But these last 3 games, Charlie Bullen has shown me he's got the makings of a good defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it on the bus. Like, you wonder, all right, the Dallas game was in week 2, and Dable didn't make a change. I understand that. You're hanging in there with your guy. And then you beat the Chargers, you lose the game in New Orleans, you lose the game at you lose the game at Denver. And you wonder, like, after the Dallas game and the Denver game, had a change been made? You wonder, suddenly, the San Francisco game, suddenly the Chicago game, suddenly the Green Bay game, suddenly the Detroit game, suddenly the Washington game, suddenly the Minnesota game are in play as games that you could have won, right? You weren't probably going to win all of them, but you would have won a handful more, and you could be looking at a team that, could be at 6 or 7 wins, right?
And that means that the rebuild is on schedule, right? Because now you're in a rebuild with your best wide receiver out, with your key running back out. Those are things you look and you say, okay, we're on track. But when you are struggling and you just get your 3rd win in week 16, it's hard to see that the rebuild is heading in the right direction. But again, you can point to defensive failure as real reasons why they lost, and then you look at, again, Charlie Bullen is sitting there looking at this talent, and he says, I'm going to turn these guys loose. I'm going to devise some things that make them hard to block when they're already hard to block, but we're going to cause chaos. And he's done a fine job of that. You've seen, young players get better. Marcus Bowe, right? And this, again, I make no assumptions because Jermaine Illuminor he's earned his money. He's earned his paycheck in the next round of his free agency. They drafted Marcus Bowe, which will make it a decision that they can make competently. It's not like pull the plug because we don't want to pay a player. Or is it, okay, we really got to think about this because Marcus Bowe is on a upward trajectory and he's played in some key moments during our season and he's fared well. So he's tracking like a starter. Is he ready to take it over next year? Or do we compete to keep Jermaine Illuminor? Either way, Jermaine Illuminor has earned his 2nd free agency payday, and he's put himself in a great position to be the Giants' right tackle. If the Giants can compete in free agency for him, but if they lose out, and I think the Giants should make an effort to sign him. If they lose out, they got Marcus Bowe, who they have developed. That's another player who has developed. This is not, you're looking at player. It's easy to point to, and it's fair. It's fair to point to guys who have not. But you also have to look at the guys that have. And when you look at draft choices that have stepped up and have started to play well, that's why you draft them. That's what you want to see from your draft choices. And, you got Carmen Basila, who's coaching that position. You've got Andre Carter, who's coaching the defensive line position. Their guys have gotten better. Some are self-starters. Obviously, Brian Burns is a self-starter. But you look at the young players from day one to where they are now, Um, Abdul Carter gotten better. He's been close, and then he had the hiccup, with the discipline problem. But he responded well to that, and he's, listen, that's development. Great players have to be developed too.
It's hard to find people who are good at what they do, Carl. And it's like if you're hiring, you run a business. How do you find the best people for all the different roles on your team? Well, it's easy. ZipRecruiter. Right now, you could try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. There's new challenges coming in 2026, filling specialized roles, identifying qualified candidates from a huge pool of applicants. Thankfully, there's a place that you can go to help conquer these challenges, achieve your hiring goals with ZipRecruiter. Right now, try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. I mean, they've got incredible resources. They have this resume database. You can unlock information easily. I know that you try to streamline things because time is money and you don't want to be wasting time, and ZipRecruiter is going to help you do that.
And they strip away the candidates that are not qualified or not fitting what you need. And I think, if we have to apply that to the New York Giants, they're going to have to use an advanced version of a ZipRecruiter too. They've got to get the right people in the right positions to get the team back on track. So it's going to be interesting to see, what happens this offseason or when the season's over with. Because there are some qualified coaches on this staff. I'm not sure how it's all going to play out and where it all lands. If there's a new person at the head of that coaching staff, he may want his own people and may think his people are better. But, I've seen in these last 3 games a guy like Charlie Bullen who's got the makings of being a really good coordinator.
Well, let ZipRecruiter help you find the best people for your roles. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Just go to this exclusive web address right now, ZipRecruiter, for free. ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Carl, listen, we all know that Deonte Banks has been a disappointment, right? As a high draft pick, a player that the Giants traded up for. But I remember when they moved him to kick return, talking with Dabes at the time, and he was like, he's got that long stride. He's got an explosiveness to him. We think he could be really good at this. And there was a couple times where he just, he told me like, oh man, if we made one little more extra block, or he made a little bit better read, he's so close to cracking one. And look, he's a beleaguered player as far as the Giant fan base is concerned. Hey, within the building here, he's been a very frustrating figure, but it was kind of cool to see. Again, you talk about that camaraderie. I mean, they wound up taking a penalty, celebrating for him. And you could see the smiles, and everybody knows that he struggled. His teammates know it's been a mess for him, but
they know he's better, right? And they know he's capable of doing better, and that you could see that the way his teammates celebrated his success. Now, it's also worth noting that he played one of his better games in the last 3 years. Yesterday, he tackled well. Now he gave up the touchdown, and it clearly, one way or the other, he was at fault for it. Whether he thought he had help and was in zone, or he just got beat in man coverage, but he responded right away with that touchdown. And also, a hat tip to the guys on that kick return team. They all got great blocks. Nobody got a penalty, because as soon as he broke open, I looked behind him as you were calling the play to see if any flags came out, right? And it was a great read by him and a good job. But like I said, it's also worth noting that he played one of his better games. Now, this is one of these players, again, like I said, and I'm using this for lack of a better term, he can almost, you look at him and it's almost like you could be conned into thinking, could I get this guy on track? Because he's got all the tools, right? And then you put the film on from yesterday and you say, see, I told you, he's focused on this game. Maybe we could do this. He's one of these guys where, let's see if he can stack another one against Dallas. No matter who Dallas plays, it's more about him than it is the opponent anyway. But, you get to a point where you say, okay, he's a draft pick. Looks like he's a late bloomer or starting to figure it out. But it's a trust thing with him, right? Can you trust that he'll do it? And maybe the light has come on. That's one game, right? And I want to see him be good moving forward, no matter what, just so that he can maximize his career, whether it's here with the Giants or somewhere else. I would just love to see him grow into his potential, fulfill the potential that he is.
Well, I mean, look, there's numbers to be hit for everybody at this time of year, especially if you're not going to the playoffs. And I believe that Dallas is very motivated to at least finish this season at 500. Dak's having an off-the-charts kind of season. Pickens is a free agent. He's putting up numbers. CeeDee Lamb is a Pro Bowler, perennial Pro Bowler. Pickens got the Pro Bowl nod this year. So let's see what he does next week against Dallas, right? I mean, because listen, Deontay Thornton, Alex Bachman, no disrespect to those players, and aging Tyler Lockett, he'll get an opportunity next week to try to stack against, let's face it, a much better receiving core. But hey, you can only do what you can do, and I'm not saying that. You know what? I have these high expectations. But he is on his rookie deal, and the probabilities are most likely he'll be on the roster next year anyway. So let's see what happens. I'm not banking, no pun intended, on any of it, but we'll see what happens with him. But just for that moment,
and I'm proud of him. I'm happy that he bounced back from last week, which, in my opinion, was a debacle. It obviously, you heard what I had to say about it, but I'm glad to see that he bounced back from that. He played a good game. Wasn't perfect, but he played a really good game for the defense. And that's, again, I like what Charlie Bullen has done for this defense. He's got them playing and kind of leaning into what their strengths are, not just restricting guys up front and saying, well, this is all I need you to do. It's like, let me just turn these guys loose. Let me create some actions that I can involve 3 guys, 2 guys, and make them hard to block because they're super athletic. And if they get moving, it's just going to cause a problem. And I admire that type of defensive play calling. And again, he's still growing, but he's intellectually curious. He understands personnel usage, and he's trying to get guys going. And like I said, he put a few more tricks in his bag. He's going to be a good play caller for a long time in the league.
So, for the second year in a row, the Giants won a game in Week 17 that potentially can cost them the first overall pick. And I understand a lot of fans are saying, if you have the number 1 overall pick, there's going to be somebody that's going to want to come up and get a quarterback. You cost yourself an opportunity. However, we don't know, a lot changes from now until you get to the draft as far as the way players are evaluated quarterback wise or whatever. And although this is not particularly a strong draft class, according to people that follow this, I do not. I'm just parroting what I read and what I hear. But that does not mean that there will not be another quarterback that people kind of fall in love with in the process. I mean, Jackson Dart won a lot of people over during the courting period, not just here in this building, but with a lot of other teams. So who's to say that if the Giants wind up with the number 2 overall pick, there isn't a quarterback needy team that's going to want to trade up, and the Giants are still going to be able to get a really nice package where they can add a whole bunch of extra picks for someone desperate to move up to 2 if one of these quarterbacks. We don't know. Like, we're just all speculating.
Yeah,
right
I mean, it's everybody's playing lottery, right? They want to get a ticket and hope that it hits. You just play the cards you don't. You get your players. You get good players, right? There have been many of number 1 picks or top picks for teams that just didn't pan out. You want to get good players that pan out for you. Yeah, you would love to accumulate, whatever you can get, but as long as you can get what you need and what you want, and continue to develop them, that's all I'm concerned with. Because listen, I will never, ever, ever criticize players for winning games. I don't care. Excuse me. I don't care where it lands in the season. It's important to these players. And if you've ever competed in anything, it's important. You don't take the field to lose. I understand. I'll repeat. I understand you as fans. If you're in your 20s, you haven't seen any winning, right? And you're playing, lottery with, what if we get this and what if we get this? Here's the problem. And again, you guys can have at it, but you keep talking about you're losing this. You haven't lost anything other than games this season. You haven't lost out an opportunity to get a player. Most of you, I would say 95% of you couldn't go past the top 5 players in the draft right now. And of those top 5 players that are candidates, you probably have seen them play 3 or 4 times. So you got to still wait until these combine reports come out, until the experts that have watched these guys for the last 2-3 years can tell you what it is, right? And then you got to go through the process of where do they fit on your team. So this is part of the fandom, and I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying there's a lot you don't know. What you want is your team to get it right, and especially this Giant football team. Speculating on who you could get a handful of rotten apples, right? You want to make sure that your team gets it right. No matter where they're picking, there's going to be a good player that could help your team. There's going to be multiple good players that are going to help your team. You still got 6 rounds, aside from the supplements that you can get if you were getting a trade. You got to get those things right. That's my big concern. And so I'm not going to penalize you as fans for wanting to get as much as you can. I'm not going to penalize players for playing to win because they don't play for draft picks. My big concern is to get the players right, get the coaching right, whatever that may be. If it's people on this staff that remain, make sure they're the right people. You see where the arrow is pointing with some of these areas of the football team. I just want to get it right as much as you fans, probably more than you fans, having been at the top of the pinnacle. I want to see this team get back in the mix, and we have playoff conversations every week. I want you guys mad because they didn't get a better seed in the playoffs, not because they're so far out of it. We're bickering about, whether they should win or lose to get an extra draft pick or 2.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it during the game, actually, when Daniel Bellinger, it was kind of early in the game, and he went over the middle on a pass play, and he got lit up. I thought he was like severely injured. I don't even know how he got up, but he took a tremendous shot.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Whoa. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, man, you think this guy's thinking about a draft pick?
Exactly.
Exactly. As Javon Holland's running down the field to cover a kick, which, by the way, I saw some people criticizing the coaching staff. Why is Holland out there recovering kicks? That's what happens in the NFL. There's starters on special teams all the time.
Because he's good at it.
Right. You played in the league for 13 years. You were on specials all 13 years of your career.
13 years. And I ran down on kicks and covered and return, kickoff return, punt and punt return for 10 or 11 out of 13 years. In year 12, I was an emergency backup on kickoff coverage teams because I was good at it.
Yeah, and there's only so many guys on your roster that you can actually use,
Yeah.
and you need, the football players play. That's why the whole thing about the draft pick, like tell these guys running down there, and so I don't know. I'm happy for the players. I'm happy for Jackson Dart, who bounced back and played well yesterday against. Listen, the Raiders defensively, they were right in the middle of the pack in all the numbers, so they're not as bad. They're not bad defensively like they are offensively, and good for him. He's now 3-8 in his 11 starts, and I know he desperately wants to finish his rookie season 4-8 as a starting quarterback and increase. How about this thing? He's tied for the second most rushing touchdowns by a rookie quarterback in NFL history.
Cam Newton's probably far and away, right?
Yeah, he had 14 in 2011. But if you're like my age, I was talking to Paul Dottino on the plane because we sat near each other, and Billy Kilmer had 9 rushing touchdowns in 1961. Now, we remember Billy Kilmer with the Washington Redskins and not athletic looking, but that was way at the back end of his career where he and Sonny Jurgensen, they looked like they were about 100 playing quarterback. But in 1961, he had 9 rushing touchdowns. So I'd like to see Dart get at least one more against the Cowboys this week so he could have second all time. He ain't catching Cam Newton.
No.
But that's he's done a lot of really good things his rookie season, some record-setting things.
Yeah, and when the hot take narrative came out about the trading Dart, then they took the cheese and went down the rabbit hole to try to find things that Jackson Dart can't do, right? And I'm like, he's a rookie, he's developing. And someone says, well, coming out of college, the big knock on him was his accuracy, on balls 20 yards or more in the air. And I went and looked it up. I'm like, that's not quite true. Like, he was one of the tops in the SEC on long balls. And then I just kind of chuckled to myself because he hit a 20-something yarder and then a 30-something yarder yesterday that were dead on the money. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, people get sucked into people who, these narratives that are not intended for anything other than to get people talking, right? And this Trey Jackson Dart mess went on and it just took off. And I'm just like, you guys are so idiotic. You know how hard it is to find and develop a quarterback. And, look at Arizona right now. They're struggling again, trying to figure out what their future is at quarterback. There's just, San Francisco drafted a quarterback really high, and then they end up taking a walk-on, and he's been starting ever since.
And think about how many drops the Giants have had on deep balls.
Yeah.
I mean, right out of the gate. So his numbers would look different. And how about this? How about insert Malik Neighbors into the equation at some point next year? And how about bringing in another receiver via the draft or whatever that's like a legit number 2, and suddenly those numbers will look a lot different. But I'm just happy for him.
You're gonna love it. Yeah, I'm happy for him. I'm just happy with the development of some of the players that we don't hear a lot about because of people focus on, and rightfully so, some of the misses. And so, but with those misses, you got to acknowledge some of the hits too, and address your offensive line. And Marcus Bowe, from the minute he got into camp, he just got better every single day. And he had to come in and play some key minutes during the season, fared well, and then he's full game yesterday. He accounted for himself well. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy again with the development of Darius Alexander. Still got to be a tick faster off the ball, but man, he's going to be a good defensive lineman for the Giants for a long time. but that's development. That's player development. I'm happy that Dane Belton got his interception, and he looked a lot different. He looked more confident, looked like he knew where he needed to be on the defensive calls. He wasn't just out there. And, hopefully that's a good sign that he could, put himself in a position to get more meaningful minutes in his role, because I call him a human detonator, because when he hits you, something explodes, right? And he's good for the defense in terms of his physicality, but he's an asset when he's where he's supposed to be and understands where he's supposed to be. So hopefully he can develop into that asset. And this is all since Charlie Bullen has taken over the defense. They've just progressively gotten better, and I like that.
Yeah, and we'll see what they do against a way better offense next week against the Dallas Cowboys to wrap the season up, and we'll be back later in the week to preview that season finale. Anything else, Carl?
Nope. Get ready for Dallas. Get ready for the new year, folks, and we'll see what happens.
All right, I want to thank our friends at FanDuel, the good people at ZipRecruiter. How do we like to end this thing, Carl?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Believe in Giants.